don't forget to hit the subscribe button to show support. Also go and follow the channel MJ Forever. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was more than a superstar. He was a global phenomenon, a cultural force that redefined music, dance, and celebrity. But on June 25, 2009, the world stopped. News broke that the king of pop was gone. Cardiac arrest, they said. Prescriptions. A private doctor. The headlines flooded in, but for many fans, it didn't add up. The more we look at the events leading to Michael Jackson's death, the more questions we uncover. Was it truly just a medical mishap? Or was something much darker at play? Michael had always lived under pressure. Since he was a child, fame was his reality. The world watched him grow, break records, and push artistic limits. But behind the glitter and the glove, there were battles. Legal cases, debt, betrayal, and a constant feeling that someone was always trying to control him. In 2009, Michael was preparing for his big comeback. This Is It was supposed to be a return to greatness, 50 shows at London's O2 Arena. But friends close to him noticed something strange. Michael seemed tired, underweight, and anxious. Some say he was being pushed too hard, overworked by those who stood to profit from his return. Enter Dr. Conrad Murray. Hired as Michael's personal physician for the tour, Murray was paid $150,000 a month. But he wasn't just treating allergies or colds. He was administering propofol, a powerful anesthetic, not meant to be used outside of a hospital. Michael reportedly called it his milk. Why was this even allowed? Murray claimed he was trying to help Michael sleep. But propofol isn't a sleep aid. It's an anesthetic used for surgery. Experts later testified that administering it at home was gross negligence. On the morning of June 25th, Murray left the room for 2 minutes. When he returned, Michael wasn't breathing. No working equipment, no immediate call to 911, and a doctor who didn't know CPR. Does that sound like an accident or something more? The autopsy ruled it a homicide, death by acute propofol intoxication with benzodiazepines. Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in 2011 and served 2 years. But many believe Murray was just the fall guy. Could a single doctor be responsible for a setup this elaborate? Look at the money. At the time of his death, Michael Jackson was hundreds of millions in debt. Yet, his music catalog, including rights to Beatles songs, was worth billions. Ownership of that catalog shifted quickly after his death. Sony, the company he had famously fought, gained majority control. Coincidence? Or part of a long game? Michael had often spoken about powerful people trying to silence him. In interviews, he hinted at conspiracies, at being targeted. He told friends he feared for his life. He said, "They want my catalog. They're going to kill me for it." Was that paranoia or prophecy? Another layer, the rehearsals. Just days before his death, footage shows Michael dancing, smiling, rehearsing for This Is It. He looked tired, but not like a man on the verge of death. Why would someone who was so close to collapse be rehearsing at full capacity? And what about the insurance? A $17.5 million policy covered his death, but it wasn't just accidental. Reports suggest AEG, the concert promoter, stood to benefit immensely. They insisted on hiring Murray. Why? There are also missing pieces. Surveillance footage from Michael's home is gone. Phone records were incomplete. Witnesses changed stories. Key people refused to testify. If it was a simple case of a doctor gone rogue, why so much confusion, delay, and silence? Some fans believe he never really died. Others say he was assassinated. Theories range from the Illuminati to corporate takedowns. It's easy to dismiss these as wild speculation until you start asking the same questions they do. Why was Michael Jackson, one of the most successful artists in history, left under the care of an underqualified doctor administering lethal drugs in a home setting? Why were warning signs ignored? Why was so much at stake? And why, after his death, did so many stand to profit? In the years since, documentaries, court cases, and interviews have emerged, each offering pieces of a larger puzzle. But we still don't have a full picture. Maybe we never will. But perhaps that's the point. Perhaps Michael Jackson's death like so much of his life, was never meant to be simple. What do you think? Was it an accident? Was it negligence? Was it murder? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're just as intrigued by stories the world won't stop questioning, make sure to hit that subscribe button. This is only the beginning. Now I have a video we're going to look at from a channel by the name MJ Forever. The title of the video is Leaving Neverland Exposed, the fraud behind the documentary. Let us watch.
They say the truth always comes out, no matter how many lies are told. But what happens when the world refuses to listen? In 2019, HBO released Leaving Neverland, a so-called documentary where two men, Wade Robson and James Safechuck, accused Michael Jackson of unspeakable crimes. The media went wild. Headlines called it the final nail in the coffin for MJ's legacy. But there was just one big problem. They were lying. Not only had both of these men previously defended Michael Jackson under oath, but their own stories were full of contradictions, impossible timelines, and financial motives. So why did they do it? And why did the media promote their lies without question? This is the real story of Leaving Neverland, the smear campaign designed to destroy Michael Jackson for money, fame, and power. To understand Leaving Neverland, we need to go back. Way back to when Wade Robson and James Safechuck were Michael Jackson's biggest supporters. From the outside, they seemed like nothing more than lucky fans who got to meet their idol. But their connection to MJ ran deeper than most people realize. Wade Robson was a die-hard Michael Jackson fan from Australia. He practiced MJ's dance moves obsessively, idolized his every move, and even won a dance contest that led him to meet Michael in person. That meeting changed his life. Over the years, MJ mentored Wade, bringing him on stage during performances and even giving him opportunities in the entertainment industry. Wade was always grateful, vocal, and appreciative, so much so that he repeatedly defended MJ in interviews. James Safechuck had a different kind of connection. He was a child actor who landed a role in one of MJ's Pepsi commercials in the late 1980s. This role introduced him to Michael, and he became one of the many children who visited Neverland Ranch. But what people forget is that James's parents were always around, enjoying lavish vacations and gifts. In fact, his family loved their connection to Michael Jackson, until there was money to be made from turning against him. For years, Wade and James were proudly connected to Michael Jackson. They weren't just fans. They were beneficiaries of his kindness, support, and generosity. But here's the kicker. Both of them defended Michael Jackson in court. In 1993, when MJ faced his first false allegations, James Safechuck's family publicly stated that nothing inappropriate ever happened. His mother went on record saying she had zero concerns about her son's time with MJ. In 2005, Wade Robson took the stand under oath and aggressively defended Michael Jackson, stating without hesitation that MJ had never done anything wrong to him. He was firm, confident, and unshaken, even under intense cross-examination. So, what changed? It wasn't trauma. It wasn't repressed memories. It wasn't guilt. It was money. After Michael Jackson passed away in 2009, his estate became one of the most successful in history. His music, his business deals, and his legacy were worth billions, an empire that only continued to grow in the years following his death. And that's when Wade and James suddenly changed their stories. For years, both men had nothing but praise for Michael. Wade even built his career off his association with MJ, landing high-profile choreography jobs and positioning himself as a creative visionary influenced by the king of pop. But once Michael was no longer alive to defend himself, their tone changed drastically. Wade's career was in decline. After years of writing off his MJ connection, he auditioned to direct the Cirque du Soleil show Michael Jackson 1, but he was rejected, marking a turning point in his career. Soon after, he filed a $1.5 billion lawsuit against MJ's estate, claiming he had been abused. The timing was suspicious. He had spent years praising MJ and even writing about his amazing memories with him. But suddenly, when he couldn't profit off MJ's name anymore, his story flipped. James Safechuck followed Wade's lead, filing a similar lawsuit. Unlike Wade, James had faded into obscurity, but seeing the attention Wade was getting, he saw an opportunity. Their cases were thrown out of court multiple times due to lack of evidence. Judges saw through their contradictions, inconsistencies, and financial motives. They weren't done yet. With their lawsuits failing, they turned to something even bigger, a media-fueled smear campaign designed to permanently stain Michael Jackson's name. With their lawsuits failing, they turned to Hollywood, where sensationalism sells and facts don't always matter. HBO greenlit Leaving Neverland, a one-sided propaganda piece that presented Wade and James as victims, despite their stories being riddled with contradictions and outright fabrications. James Safechuck claimed he was abused in Neverland's train station between 1988 and 1992. But here's the problem. The train station wasn't even built until 1994. He literally lied about the location where he claimed these horrific events took place. When confronted with this inconsistency, his legal team scrambled for an explanation, eventually stating that James misremembered the timeline. But how do you misremember something that never happened? Then there's Wade Robson, whose story wasn't just inconsistent, it was a complete fabrication that evolved over time. In 2005, under oath, he said nothing ever happened and defended Michael Jackson passionately. Years later, after being rejected by the MJ estate for a directing job, he suddenly claimed he had been abused. Yet in his own book, he described his childhood as the happiest time of his life. He also wrote letters to the MJ estate asking for opportunities, proving he had no issue associating with Michael Jackson's name until he could no longer profit from it. These weren't just small mistakes, they were outright lies, carefully crafted to fit a financial agenda. HBO ignored all of this. They never fact-checked, they never investigated the inconsistencies, and they never gave Michael Jackson's estate or legal team a chance to present evidence. This wasn't a documentary. This was a hit piece designed to generate outrage, clicks, and ratings at the expense of the truth. Despite these contradictions, the media and Hollywood stood behind Wade and James, refusing to question their claims. Instead of investigating the glaring inconsistencies, they blindly accepted their stories as absolute truth, creating a dangerous, one-sided narrative. HBO promoted Leaving Neverland as undeniable truth, even though Michael Jackson's estate was not allowed to respond or present evidence contradicting the accusations. The documentary was presented without cross-examination, violating every standard of fair reporting. The mainstream media never questioned Wade and James's financial motives, despite the fact that both had repeatedly praised Michael Jackson in the past and had clear monetary incentives to fabricate claims. Michael's former staff, family, and lawyers provided proof that Wade and James's stories were false, including legal documents, sworn testimonies, and factual timelines that disproved their claims. Yet, the media completely ignored these facts, choosing instead to push a predetermined narrative that suited their agenda. Hollywood and the press didn't care about the truth. They cared about ratings, controversy, and profit. They latched on to Leaving Neverland as a tool for sensationalism, knowing that nothing sells better than scandal. Leaving Neverland wasn't a documentary. It was a calculated smear campaign designed to tarnish Michael Jackson's legacy for good. One of the most shocking betrayals came from Oprah Winfrey, a woman who had once celebrated Michael Jackson's genius and legacy, only to turn against him when it was convenient. She had previously praised Michael Jackson, calling him a cultural icon and even conducting one of the most watched interviews of his career in 1993. She expressed admiration for his artistry and influence, treating him with respect. But after Leaving Neverland aired, Oprah quickly aligned herself with Wade Robson and James Safechuck, hosting a special called After Neverland, where she gave them a massive platform to push their allegations without any scrutiny. She never once challenged their inconsistencies, contradictions, or financial motives. Instead, she used her reputation and influence to amplify their unverified claims, further damaging Michael's legacy. She failed to ask the most critical questions. Why did these men defend Michael for years? Why did their stories change after his death? Why were their lawsuits thrown out of court? Oprah ignored it all, choosing to stand by two men whose testimonies were riddled with provable falsehoods. But here's where it gets interesting. After massive backlash from fans, experts, and even members of the media, Oprah quietly deleted the entire After Neverland special from her platforms. It vanished without explanation, as if she was trying to erase her role in the smear campaign. She knew something was wrong. She knew she had backed the wrong side, but instead of admitting it, she simply tried to sweep it under the rug and move on. As time passed, their lies began to collapse under the weight of hard evidence and public scrutiny. The cracks in their stories grew too large to ignore, and their credibility was shattered. Wade's lawsuit was dismissed in 2023, yet again, due to lack of evidence. The judge saw through his shifting narratives, recognizing the contradictions in his claims. His last desperate attempt to cash in on false allegations had failed. Multiple former Neverland staff members and close acquaintances of Michael Jackson exposed Wade and James's contradictions. Staff who had been at Neverland during the time of the alleged incidents confirmed that Wade and James's stories simply did not match reality. From fabricated timelines to locations that didn't even exist yet, their claims were easily debunked. Taj Jackson, Brandy Jackson, and other members of MJ's family fought back fiercely, demanding justice for Michael's legacy. Taj spearheaded a campaign to uncover the truth, exposing the biases and financial motives behind leaving Neverland. His efforts, along with other truth seekers, reignited the fight to clear Michael's name. But the final blow came when the general public began to turn against leaving Neverland. The documentary that had once been hailed as the definitive truth was now being recognized as a deeply flawed, biased hit piece riddled with inconsistencies. Even some media outlets that had initially promoted the film started to acknowledge the glaring issues in Wade and James's accounts. Just when we thought the lies were over, they're back again, this time with Leaving Neverland 2, a desperate attempt to keep the false accusations alive. The sequel claims to present new evidence against Michael Jackson, but in reality, it's just a repackaging of the same debunked lies. Wade Robson and James Safechuck are once again pushing their false narratives, despite their lawsuits being thrown out multiple times for lack of evidence. The timing of Leaving Neverland 2 is no coincidence. It comes just as the official Michael Jackson biopic is gaining traction and getting ready for release. The film, which has the full support of the Jackson family, aims to tell the true story of Michael's life, his triumphs, struggles, and the truth behind the false accusations. The release of Leaving Neverland 2 is a calculated attack, designed to poison public perception before the biopic even premieres. The goal is clear: to discredit Michael Jackson once again and overshadow the film that will finally set the record straight. But unlike the first time, Leaving Neverland 2 is being met with more skepticism than ever before. Fans, independent journalists, and legal experts are calling out HBO and the mainstream media for continuing to platform proven liars. Social media is filled with people questioning why Wade and James are still being taken seriously when their own testimonies have been exposed as fraudulent. Even some media outlets that initially supported the first documentary are hesitating to fully endorse this sequel. The cracks in their narrative are getting bigger, and the world is starting to see the truth. The release of Leaving Neverland 2 shows that the attacks on Michael Jackson will never stop. His enemies will always find ways to bring him down, even years after his death. But here's what they don't realize: they're only making his legacy stronger. The Michael Jackson biopic is already generating massive excitement worldwide. Fans are rallying behind the film, determined to make it a success. Every lie they tell only fuels the demand for the truth. And as history has shown, the truth always wins. In the end, Leaving Neverland didn't destroy MJ. It destroyed the credibility of Wade and James. Instead of taking down Michael Jackson, their lies became a permanent stain on their own reputations, leaving them exposed as frauds who tried to exploit an innocent man's legacy for financial gain. Michael Jackson's name and music continue to shine, stronger than ever, and the truth, as always, prevails. The attempt to destroy Michael Jackson didn't start with Leaving Neverland. It began decades ago, long before Wade Robson and James Safechuck even came into the picture. Michael Jackson was not just a pop star. He was a global phenomenon whose influence stretched far beyond music. His power made him a threat to the industry, an artist who couldn't be controlled by record labels or corporate elites. He owned his own music rights, including parts of the Beatles' catalog, an unprecedented move that gave him control over some of the most valuable publishing assets in the world. This didn't sit well with major executives who saw him as too powerful, too independent, and too smart for their system. He openly spoke against corrupt Hollywood executives, calling out their exploitative practices and demanding fair treatment for artists. He refused to be a puppet of the industry and instead built his own empire, which made him a target. From the 1980s to the 2000s, multiple attempts were made to bring him down. Every time he reached a new level of success, a new scandal seemed to emerge. They used the media to attack his character, to twist his eccentricities into something sinister, and to turn the public against him. Leaving Neverland was just another chapter in a decades-long smear campaign, another desperate attempt to erase his legacy and discredit his contributions to music, entertainment, and cultural history. But they failed. They underestimated the truth. They underestimated the facts. And most of all, they underestimated Michael Jackson's global impact and the millions of fans who refused to let his legacy be rewritten. Michael Jackson was one of the most investigated celebrities in history, subjected to FBI surveillance, extensive legal scrutiny, and multiple trials, yet never found guilty of anything. After more than a decade of relentless accusations, investigations, and court battles, there was no credible evidence to support the claims against him. He was acquitted, vindicated, and proven innocent time and time again. The truth is simple. Leaving Neverland was a scam, built on lies, contradictions, and financial desperation. Wade and James were opportunists looking for a payout, and Michael Jackson was innocent. They tried to destroy his legacy. They tried to erase his impact, but they underestimated his fans. They underestimated the people who know the truth, who continue to defend Michael against baseless allegations and fabricated narratives. Today, Michael's music is bigger than ever. His influence is everywhere, from the biggest artists in the industry to new generations discovering his genius. His humanitarian work continues to inspire, and his cultural impact remains unmatched. The media can try to rewrite history, but the truth will always win. Lies may spread fast, but the truth stands the test of time. Let the world know, Michael Jackson was, and always will be, innocent. His legacy is untouchable, and no lie will ever erase the truth.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button to show support. Also go and follow the channel MJ Forever. See you at the next one.